Hello everyone, welcome to Now Let's Fix This. In this segment, we're going to talk about ground fault circuit interrupters, GFCIs. GFCIs, the purpose of the GFCI is to protect you and me, the person using the appliance, using around the house in damp locations or what they call wet locations. So ground fault circuit interrupters, sometimes referred to historically as GFI. So same thing, ground fault circuit interrupters. Let's talk about that and what they do and what the purpose is and how they do it. But first we need to understand what a basic electrical circuit is. So we're going to pause here and take you to the basic electrical circuit. Okay, looking at the basic electrical circuit, you have your hot wire and you have your neutral wire. So we're going to assume that the green wire is doing what it's supposed to do, which is the ground. Okay, so looking at your hot wire coming in, you have current power coming in the circuit, going back to the neutral. That is a basic circuit, basic electrical circuit. What's coming this way is going back to the circuit. So next thing we're going to talk about is what happens in that circuit. All right, looking at what happens here, your basic circuit, like I said, is supposed to come in and go out. But in this case, now all of a sudden there's a ground. So there's a ground fault, hence ground fault circuit interruption. So it's going to see a ground fault and it's going to interrupt the circuit. So what's happening here is you have an unintended ground in the circuit. So next thing I'm going to show you how that works. Okay, so here we're at, you got your basic circuit, you have a ground fault in here, and that ground fault is about a 2 amp ground fault, enough to kill a person. So the intent here is for this gadget here, this ground fault circuit interrupter, to keep this from happening, from hurting anybody. So here we have what happens, your basic circuit, you're looking at 12 amps coming in, but somehow it only sees 10 amps going out because this should not be happening. The 2 amps should not be happening. So the ground fault circuit interrupter is going to interrupt the circuit to keep this from happening because he sees an imbalance here. 12 amps coming in, only 10 amps are going out. Something is happening on the circuit, and the circuitry in the ground fault circuit interrupter doesn't like that, so it's going to de-energize the circuit or it's going to trip. Let's talk a little bit about what that does. Okay, so here's the ground fault circuit interrupter in the garage. You'll see that it's labeled. You have to look at your building codes and see what they require on labeling and so forth. But you have your ground fault circuit interrupter. It's the same thing as what you're seeing here, installed, and it's got its 2 buttons. It's got a reset button and a test button. So if you want to test your ground fault circuit interrupter, for some reason your power is out in a certain room or something like that, or you just want to check and see if this is working correctly, you can test it by pushing the test button. When you push it, you should hear an audible click to show that it did perform the test. Power is out, it works. So you know that this ground fault circuit interrupter is working correctly. It has taken a circuit out of the picture. Basically what I'm talking about, electrical picture, is the circuit, the energized circuit. So it works. Now, say for example, you go to your bathroom or somewhere outside, an outlet outside, and there's no power, and you're wondering what's going on, what happened. Go to the ground fault circuit interrupters and make sure that they are reset. In this case, we know we've just tripped it, so we're going to reset it, and you should hear another click on that. I've just reset it. Power's turned back on to the rest of the circuit. Everything's working okay, and it's reset. So that's what happens. So when, for example, you have an outlet that's not working, you can go look at your GFCIs or your GFIs, whatever you want to call them, but you look at them and see if they are tripped or not by hitting the reset button. And in this case, you have to push it in quite a bit for it to get reset, but it does work. So next thing, let's go look at what they look like in the other part of the house. All right, so here we are in the kitchen. You see 2 outlets here. One is the ground fault circuit interrupter with the reset and the test button, and then you see another regular looking outlet there, but it's got the sticker on there saying that it's protected by a ground fault circuit interrupter. So what happens here? Why did they do that? Cutting to the chase here, they do it to save money. You can control this outlet from this ground fault circuit interrupter to save money. See, these are quite expensive, but they're worth what they do. You have a ground fault circuit interrupter here. It will feed a regular outlet in the chain of the circuit, but it will protect it at the same time, so it gives you the ability to save some money. So what happens here, if I were to test this and trip it, it would also turn off the power to this outlet also. That's so for when you're in the house and you have an outlet that's not working and you're wondering what's happening, It could be that it's being fed by a ground fault circuit interrupter that has tripped. So this is what they look like in the kitchen. Let's go to another part of the house.
Go.
So here we are in the bathroom. If you notice, this looks like a regular outlet, and it is. But the sticker's telling us that this is controlled by a ground fault circuit interrupter somewhere else in the house. So if we for some reason have power that's not here, when we plug something in and it doesn't work, the thing I need to go look for is a ground fault circuit interrupter somewhere else in the house. It could be another one that looks like an outlet, like the one I've just shown you, or it could be one in the circuit breaker panel that could be feeding this. But the thing I want to take away from here, this is what you see in the bathroom. You can see the regular ground fault circuit interrupter, or you can see an outlet that's controlled by a ground fault circuit interrupter. So let's go look at that. So here we are at the panel. Looking at your circuit breaker panel, you have what we have right here, the ground fault circuit interrupter circuit breakers. So they do two things. They're a circuit breaker just like the rest of these, but they're also GFCIs. You see the little test button? If I press that test button, it should click this and de-energize whatever's on in the house. So these are ground fault circuit interrupter circuit breakers built into the panel. That's probably what's feeding those other outlets that we should see the stickers on them. So let's go back in and get some more explanation on this. All right, so we've looked at the different parts of the house. We looked at, you can have a ground fault circuit interrupter outlet. You can have a breaker panel that has a ground fault circuit interrupter breaker. They both do the same thing. They're to be able to eliminate that amperage that you see going to the ground and be able to protect you and me, the person, the human, from getting electrocuted. In the kitchen, we showed you how this can also feed a regular outlet in the circuit using the taped or covered reminder tape on these particular screws here. So these screws are for feeding in, coming from the source, and these screws are used to feed an outlet later in the circuit, like what we saw in the kitchen and the bathroom. So basically, in function, what I'm trying to do is, so we're not trying to replace a tech manual, not trying to replace the logic or anything like that. My goal here is just to be able to explain much simpler basis on how these work, to help you have an understanding on how to go troubleshoot them. If you have an outlet that's not working in the bathroom or so forth, you'll be able to go look for these in the house and reset them and see that outlet start working again. If once you've done all that and you just can't get it to work and it won't reset, then it may be time to start calling an electrician to be able to go and troubleshoot these things. But at the end of the day, the whole purpose here is to be able to help save some money while still doing things safe. And if you have any questions that you feel I didn't cover, you can always email me at nowletsfixthis@gmail.com. So on the next segment, we're going to be looking at how to use basic meters, how to use fully functioning digital meters, quick do-it-yourself or quick detection meters, no-touch meters, and so forth. So we're going to talk a little bit basic on that in one of our next segments. So thank you all for being here, and we'll see you soon.